Welcome, gentlemen. Costin here with a discussion about Emperor Karl Franz, who now does feel like the emperor of one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful nation in the Warhammer fantasy world. The empire has certainly received a major rework, and Karl Franz is one of the chief beneficiaries of that rework. I would say that the best imperial campaigns are Elspeth, Gelt, and Karl Franz. They all offer some things different. Gelt is really good early game. He can achieve a lot there and get to a ridiculous level of power. Elspeth has the most powerful armies of the empire. Whereas Karl Franz, what he's really good at is building an empire, unifying the empire, gaining control of the territory, and building it up in a way that the other factions simply cannot. There's a ton of benefits, reworked faction effects, lord effects, lots of things that do make this campaign work. One of the things that actually helps this campaign a lot is the reworked Imperial Authority. All that Imperial Authority represents right now, as opposed to the previous crappy system, but what it represents right now is it represents the level of control of the Empire by Imperial factions, either yourself or Elspeth or the minor factions. Now, Elspeth is either a useful ally that can beat Vlad on her own, or she can spend 20 turns apparently not being able to take Fort Sol. So that is a bizarre thing to win this, because really by this point she should be gallivanting in Sylvania, considering she has 2 full stacks, and Vlad is at war with Draika, which I engineered. So Imperial Authority is no longer a rope around your neck, and that opens up so many more possibilities, because one of the things that you might want to do, or even before the patch, one of the things you could have done is instead of gallivanting into Midland to try and defeat Festus as quickly as possible, is to go in Bretonia. Because Kemmler and Grom and Musalon, they wouldn't be capable of defeating you even before the patch. Post-patch, they stand no chance. Like, Grom and Kemmler are more powerful lords than you might think, but vampire counts recruit really poorly. They tend to recruit early on a lot of zombies and spearmen. They rely more on raised end mechanic as opposed to actual recruitment, I think it is. That's the reason they have such poor armies besides the starting ones. Grom starts with tier 1 settlement, and because he's moving in Aquitaine, you're gonna encounter him. Like, if you move in Bretonia quickly enough, like in Montfort, Baston, you'll encounter him near Baston most of the time, or somewhere around there, and he'll just have a bunch of orc boys and goblins and his starting units, which Karl Franz, even with archers and his starting army, could defeat pre-patch. And then Kemmler, yeah, just a joke. Same with Musalon. Lots of units, but just because they have 2 stacks doesn't mean they stand a chance against you. And this is simply just the flexibility that the new system of Imperial Authority allows, because you start to like 66, it's difficult for Imperial Authority to decline to 50, and so you can play a more leisurely campaign where you don't give a damn about much of the Empire until you've dealt with the issue of Bretonia, conquer like a third of Bretonia. Like what I did in this campaign with Franz himself. I did recruit new units in Reichland to replace the ones I initially sent here, and I got Gotrek and Felix and Bruckner. I went from Montfort, I went to Carrick-Ziflin, declared war on Baston, who they started a war with, took Montfort, took Baston, took Bordelot from Grom, got a second minor army to take Massive Orcal after defeating Grom's initial armies. Well, minor army, like regiments are now in Electrocount State Troopers, which you can get fairly easily in a Karl Franz campaign. Not necessarily in terms of the types, though you can also get that, but more so in terms of how many you can achieve in your campaign. And then, yeah, took Musalon, gave it to Leoness, and now I took Kemmler out pretty quickly, and then gave the Blackstone Post to Carrick-Ziflin, got them to join the war against Grom. I was hoping they would help. They didn't do as much as I had hoped. AI is AI, ultimately. Got a peace with Kemmler while I dealt with other things. Broke that peace with 2 turns penalty on breaking out, so my reliability isn't the best, but now it's like, yeah, a third of Bretonia belongs to the Empire. I'm sure Lewin is very happy about that, but he's busy fighting Be'lakor. So that's one thing. And the benefit of this is that Marienburg will also be left intact. So if you ignore Kemmler and Marienburg, chances are they're going to be at war with each other, and Kemmler will hands down win that fight, which will make him stronger and more difficult to deal with. Being able to deal with these factions is a significant benefit. As for Kazrak, well, Kazrak allied the suicide himself against Eilhart or Altdorf. If you get Hex Altdorf, you don't even need to recruit a unit here. The tier 2 garrison of Altdorf could deal with that. And you can get to tier 2 Altdorf fairly quickly. All you need to do is start a campaign like a dozen times until you get the Master Engineer or Archlector with Noble, which improves construction time. So you can get Altdorf faster to tier 2. Like, as opposed to 3 turns as it takes by default, it can take 2 turns with a noble lord or a noble hero. Furthermore, in terms of Imperial recruitment, and this is in itself an enormous benefit, you no longer have the armory limitation. The local recruitment capacity gets increased from the livery. You can recruit Pistoliers at tier 1, Outriders at tier 2, Handgunners at tier 2. You can get all the heroes, except mages in Altdorf, and it's only for Altdorf, but you can get even mages in other provincial capitals at tier 2. You can get every Empire hero, except mages in a Karl Franz campaign, at tier 2. So that means Witch Hunters, Warrior Priests, Captains. The first thing I do in Altdorf, like, get that Noble, start making a tier 2 settlement, remove the barracks, get the Gunsmith. Because you want to get the Witch Hunter, you want to get Handgunners. Like, I don't even recruit crossbowmen in an Imperial campaign unless I literally have no choice, or unless I get them through Confederation, or unless they're the Stir Patrol. So if I have Stirland, if I have Wartbend, and I can recruit this particular unit, I will, but that's the one exception to that particular rule. But outside of that, like, yeah, I don't care about that, because Pistoliers and Outriders are just quite capable of this. Like, Handgunners, Pistoliers, and Outriders are capable of dealing with everything you want. Like, you might want to get some Spearmen with shields from a barracks, no problem. Pretty decent line holders early on. Won't stand up to Chaos Warriors, but you don't need them to stand up to Chaos Warriors. You just need them to buy you time for other units to do their job. In particular, those Outriders and Pistoliers. Because here's the thing. Outriders and Pistoliers can be countered by mass ranged, but all of your opponents don't have a way to counter them. Like, if you look at, like, Kazrak is a joke. The Greenskins, here, a joke. Kemmler, he's going to have a lot of zombies. He might have some dire wolves, which are faster than those, but you can also recruit Imperial Knights at tier 2. And Imperial Knights, let alone the Reichsguard that Karl Franz starts with, let alone the fact that he's going to be mounted the vast majority of your campaign, they will annihilate any dire wolf. So you can just run around with the portion of your army or make entire armies of Pistoliers and Outriders and decimate everyone that stands against you. This includes Festus, for instance. In this campaign, for instance, I confederated Talabayam through Karl Franz's unique mechanic, and I got this army. Well, it didn't look like this when I got it. It had a bunch of halberdiers, swordsmen, crossbowmen, Empire Knights. I kept 2 of the Empire Knights, removed everything else, or a good portion of everything else, kept some melee units, got Talabayam's Electrocount State Troopers, the mortars that have no friendly fire, which is absurd. But got these mortars, put the infantry in a corner with artillery and all that, and then just got a bunch of Pistoliers and Outriders, and this army, without even these heroes here, or like the grenade launchers, but just Pistoliers and Outriders, killed Festus. And if you can kill Festus, you can kill Vlad. Festus is actually more dangerous very early on, because he's got a lot of capability. He's got a powerful starting army. He's got the capability of killing your lords. Like, he and his hero are very dangerous to kill, very difficult to kill. So is Vlad, of course, undeniably. So though Vlad does tend to fill up his armies with a bunch of zombies and spearmen and skeletal warriors, which, yeah, you just laugh at them while your cavalry is taking pot shots at them and obliterating them from a distance. And the problem, of course, with Pistoliers and Outriders is sieges. Well, you don't have any sieges to deal with for a long time. I mean, yeah, Bastan, that's a joke. Maybe, some greenskin sieges, but you'll face Grom on the field of battle. And if you face him in a siege with Karl Franz, that won't be an issue, really. Regardless of the army composition, Karl Franz, with a mage, can do very well in that respect. But, like, Kazrak will take, like, maybe Festus takes Middenheim, depends on how things happen in your campaign. Like, for instance, in this campaign, Kazrak took it, so that's not the siege. And even if it's a siege, with Festus, with the tier 1 Dark Fortress, it's not really too big of a problem. Festus, these 2 settlements will not be sieges, and you only get the Brass Keep. But here's the thing about the Brass Keep. Because of the way the AI recruits, and because of the power of the garrison, if you approach with an army, a full stack of units here, the garrison will sally out to try and fight you, and then you just run in circles around them and obliterate them. No problem. As for Vlad, yeah, it's a bit trickier, but the layout of Tempelhof and Drakenhof is such that there's large sections of the walls that don't have wall towers. So it might take you a while, but it's very doable. Like, the hardest sieges would actually be like things like Helmgard, Brass Keep, if you actually had to fight it, but many times you don't, Fort Bagres. Everything else is a pretty big joke. Like, vampire counts are really bad at defending in sieges, because especially when you got range superiority. But it goes even further. Like, having warrior priests, having witch hunters, having cannons at tier 3 also gives you a lot of flexibility. Though you may not use cannons in the early game. Like, you can play this at a rapid pace and achieve what I have here in 30 turns. This may not seem like a huge amount of territory, but understand, Midland fell and I retook it. Stirland, basically, I conquered and gave to Averheim. And also, I got lucky in the sense that Mortheim was razed to the ground. Draika has a tendency of doing that, let's say. And Talabheim took it. They didn't end up in war with Festus. So when I declared war on Festus, it was on my terms. It's still a pretty early game. But I got Mortheim. I sold it with the barracks to Draika. Military allied Draika started the war between Draika and Vlad. It's been going badly for Draika, as you might expect, because Vlad is Vlad. Like, yeah, but here's a thing about Vlad and Festus. They might, like with the Brass Keep situation, they might think that they're more powerful in the auto-resolve than they actually are in the battlefield. So they'll attack you, and you then just obliterate them with Pistoliers and Outriders. And if you can't win because you run out of ammo or something like that, you can just retreat from a lot of battles. Changeling is a joke, so no problem. Unless he ambushes you, so don't let him declare war on you on his terms. You declare war on him when you're about to attack his army. And the Changeling has a fairly high chance of not running away from an army, especially an army of Pistoliers and Outriders, because the auto-resolve is skewed against them. So you might have to fight these battles manually or use auto-resolve mods, but it is an enormous level of power. And like Legends of Total War played a battle where he had the Master Engineer leading a bunch of Pistoliers ambushed by the Changeling, and he won that. That was an Elspeth, so you won't have that kind of level of power. Outriders are better than Pistoliers, so yeah, an army that doesn't get ambushed will win. Especially an army that has an Empire Knights to deal with things like Cast Furies, Direwolves, Cast Warhounds. You will win. Like, those are the real dangers. Well, also the Changeling's magic. And, of course, if Vlad gets in melee, then it's kind of GG, but honestly, like, you can really outrun him. And the thing about Witch Hunters, they have a lovely, lovely spell over here, or ability, that really screws over Vlad. So being able to get one Witch Hunter early on is such a significant benefit, but you can get two. Like, normally I would go for Clergy of Sigmar, but I'm starting to think more and more that what you may want to do is get intelligence sharing as your first research. Like, what I did here is get Clergy of Sigmar, and I'm researching Imperial Architects. It might just be beneficial to get intelligence sharing and then ignore the Clergy of Sigmar. Or get intelligence sharing and get Clergy of Sigmar. But still, like, Warrior Priests, yeah, they're strong, they're useful, but like a Witch Hunter debuffing Vlad or Isabella or Festus or Festus's hero as they're about to enter melee range is really powerful. Like, accusation is incredible for an army of gunpowder units in particular. So be it handgunners, outriders, pistoliers, even mortars, Empire Spearmen with shields from tier 1 as opposed to tier 2, it's all a huge benefit. And those are just like changes because of Imperial authority, changes to the Empire. That's not even touching what Karl Franz has to offer. Oh no. See, this guy is crazy. He has basically on bows mechanic. So stone and steel, right? But you get Imperial decrees. In some ways it's more powerful, and in some ways not so much. But one of the benefits you can do here, like let's say early on in a campaign, because being able to be very aggressive early on is an enormous benefit, but one of the things you can do early on in a campaign is like take all of this territory, take the Reichland, deal with the Imperial Secessionists, which are much easier to deal with without Helmgard, though they do seem to have a more powerful army in Eilhart than they did before. Could be wrong on that. But deal with the Imperial Secessionists, and then save up prestige for both Call to Arms and Conscription. you can instantly recruit in one turn, and you can increase your local recruitment capacity. So what I did in this campaign is I switched to the state troop levy. Like if we look at this particular situation, you can see that right now I've got 4 recruitment slots. That's because the delivery increasing 1, but 4 recruitment slots, 5 if you're using call to arms, with a further recruitment cost. So if I use call to arms right here, right, you know, I can recruit a lot of units at a very, very low price. Like if we look at handgunners, they're very cheap. If we look at pistoliers and outriders, there's like, it feels like almost recruiting them for freaking free. Mind you, there's probably some other benefits that I have here that are reducing, or do I? I'm not quite sure. Don't think I have any research. But yeah, you get a lot of recruitment benefits over here. So you can recruit a lot of troops very quickly in this campaign. They're higher quality. And like, understand, you could beat Festus and Vlad with freaking archers and crossbowmen. When you unleash early game Empire Knights, Outriders, Pistoliers, Handgunners, Spearmen with shields, Warrior Priests, Witch Hunters, they don't stand a chance. If you play your cards right. That doesn't mean it's not a complicated situation. Another thing you can do, like I confederate the Taliban pretty quickly, because one of an enormous benefit is you can guarantee confederation. You do need to get 10 fealty. So kind of like fealty has replaced the way Imperial Authority worked. Like when you declare war on an Imperial faction, what will happen is that you'll lose fealty with all Electricons, unless you use Casus Belli. So like if you're going to declare war on an Imperial faction, use Casus Belli. But you start with 8 fealty with Taliban, you need to get 10 for Unify, so you can just send some aid. And then immediately after, if you have enough prestige, confederate Taliban. And the trick here is, don't declare war on Festus. Don't do any diplomatic trickery with Taliban, and there's a high chance Festus will go after Aslan, probably because it's an easier target than dealing with Taliban itself. Like, I guess Taliban just is a bigger target. Like, that's what I've seen. Like, vast majority of campaigns, if you leave Taliban alone, if you leave Festus alone, he'll go after Aslan, which means you have time. Like, if he destroys Taliban, yeah, that's going to slow down your campaign considerably. But if you can get Talabekland intact and recruit a bunch of Pistoliers and Outriders, well, you beat the shit out of Festus and then conquer Vlad. That's exactly what's happening in this campaign. And those are just some of the benefits. Things like reducing corruption, things like giving an army experience. Like, oh, you just confederated the faction and he has a tier 1 army? No problem. Just give him 2,500 experience. He'll gain a level. His entire army will gain experience. No problem. You'll be to gold rank units in no time. Oh, you want to get Electricon State Troopers? Use Requisition. And also, funnily enough about Requisition, Karl Franz is even better with that because he gets Leader of Men. So with that, you can replenish not just 1 unit in the Electricon unit pool, but 2. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. You start with Karburg Greatswords. You can get Middenheim back fairly quickly, assume it follows. I'd say Taliban and Hergig are really powerful because you get those mortars and you get the gunpowder units, the special handgunners in Hergig. Wardband, kind of beneficial. Marienburg, obviously, pretty beneficial as well, though. You could rush Marienburg, but then Kemmler would come from the side. So, like, Karl Franz has spent his entire time in this campaign, besides conquering Reichland, he spent his entire time in Bretonnia. But I've conquered, like, a good portion of the Empire, or unified a good portion of it. And here's the thing, because you can guarantee confederation when you so desire, you can decide, okay, I'm just going to let Boris Ursus rebuild Midland, right? That's something I deliberately chose. Like, yes, I confederated Taliban, but I've chosen not to confederate Averheim or to confederate Midland, which I could, either of those. Or I could, build Imperial fealty to get Elspeth, but I can just let the AI, who has more money than me, who has lower upkeep, I can just let the AI do it. Especially if Elspeth is just sitting on her ass, unable to take a freaking fort. I mean, it's tier 3, it's probably annoying, but I mean, it's like, she has no excuse. Like, this is weird. Like, sometimes it doesn't happen, many times it won't happen, but it's just weird. And all of this ends up being pretty gigantic in terms of benefits. Pretty sure Unify only works in the Empire, but you can upgrade these decrees. Oh yeah. You can get, for prestige, very quickly, Emperor of the Empire. You get Conclave of Light, because you still have electoral machinations diplomatic talks. Like over here, you can affect relations between imperial factions, but then you can upgrade it to affect diplomatic relations between all the order factions. The order tide is real, and you're going to make it real. And then get even more absurd decrees over here with confederation. Being able to guarantee confederations is great because it's one thing to confederate a weak faction. It's another thing to just like leave Nordland and Midland and Averheim alone for a long time and then just confederate them anyway, or Ostland. Gives a great deal of flexibility that you otherwise would lack. And allows you to control the territory of the Empire in a way that not even Elspeth or Geld can do, really. Because, yeah, you can also give, like, you know, spawn an army that's degrading to an ally when they need them, or, you know, get population surplus. Like, you don't even need growth as Karl Franz, because you get 1 surplus point every 3 turns over here to a territory. So you can get to tier 5 faster than any other Imperial campaign. Well, technically, Geld, when he has that 10-turn benefit, could get faster. After, not so much. But yeah, you end up in a ridiculously powerful situation. You don't need growth building, so you can focus on the economy and hero capacity. I mean, you still want to get livestock pens, of course, for Pistolier and like that's the reason they were so cheap there. You can get like 50% recruitment benefit, even higher, really. For it's 55%, and you end up dominating this campaign map. It's still complicated because you've got Norska from the north. Greenskins from the south. Yeah, that's a fun one because, yeah, Elspeth hasn't been particularly useful in this campaign. And you can gain vision with Gelt through Cafe and Caravans and declare war on him. And then eventually at the peace, right? If you do want to work with that. Though keep in mind, this is only going to work with factions in the Empire. But yeah, you may not have the best climate, you may not have the most powerful armies, you certainly don't have the most powerful magic, but what you do have does work very, very, very well. So, Karl Franz now feels like a proper solid campaign. Would I recommend it to beginners? Probably not. I'll be honest, I think if you're a beginner player, I'd recommend Gelt more, really. It just feels like an easier campaign, especially on lower difficulties, because Snitch is nowhere near the same level of biblical threat on normal or easy as he is on legendary, just my experience. Whereas it can be rough as Karl Franz, but yeah, Gelt would probably be my recommended first campaign, especially if you stay in Cafe. Karl Franz is more of an advanced campaign, but he should be. Like, it should be a campaign that, you know, feels satisfying to play when you're a veteran player. That's my perspective. I'm not saying it's completely horrible for a new player. You do have plenty of buffers, and you have, on lower difficulties, these electric councils stay alive more, so you won't have the same pressure, but just keep that in mind. That's all I had to say. Like, I really like it. Like, who would I say I like the most? I mean, I admit, I like Gelt the most. His climate possibilities, his territorial control is very substantial, but if you're looking to play a campaign where you're building an empire, where you have a lot of ridiculous power over that empire, over your territory, yeah, Karl is the best of the Imperial campaigns. And I gotta kind of feel bad for Volkmar and Marcus Wolfhard, but maybe one day CA will actually fix those campaigns as well. We can only dream. Costin signing out.